Hey everybody, it is November 7th, 2025 here with your after hours recap. So let's just kind of go over my frustrations a little bit today. So ARK, I was looking at this base breakout level to hold support, but when we started to take out 78 bucks in the morning, I did not give it to the end of the day and show patience like I've been for the last 5 months. And sure enough, this thing at the end of the day is rebounding in a pretty strong way. So kind of kicking myself a little bit for that, right? 5 months of patience, and Kathy decided that she was going to be loyal at that $78 spot. And of course, it bounces all day long. I am no longer in it. I am a bit frustrated with that, but it is what it is. BABA is the other one that a little bit frustrating because I did own this thing at like 64 and change. I want to say actually 65 and change. And what ended up happening, they come for my shares in the morning. I get stopped out literally right at the open, only to see this thing in the afternoon, like everything else, perking right back up and ultimately closing above the 50 simple moving average. So a little bit frustrating on my part. I was also short some IONQ, and I had a nice entry on this thing yesterday. This morning we're washing out. I'm not covering anything because it's a teeny tiny position. And what starts to happen, we start to perk up. I start to short a little bit more. No big deal. I'm still green. $55 is the spot that I'm thinking back of mind. You know, I got a, kind of 55 bucks, which is now my cost basis. I'm going to use that spot as my exit. We effectively get back over 55. I cut half my position, not the whole thing. And then I let this thing effectively rip up, go green, which is where I ended up cutting the rest of it. So I let a nice green trade, even though it was small to start, go red on me. So frustrated with that one. And that's a little bit frustrating, right? Because I was up like 70K, and it ended up being a 30K loser. So, and then to add insult to injury, I was like, okay, when we start to go red, I thought maybe we can kind of get heavy into the close. I short this thing one more time, and then I get stopped out right away. Insult to injury, but such is trading. Then to add more insult to injury, I get short SNDK, and let me tell you, I effectively top tick the shit out of this thing. I'm short 228 bucks. I add a little bit less, a little bit less than what I shorted at 228. At 223, so now I've got a 226 cost basis, and this thing proceeds to fade $20 for me. I take nothing off because I'm like, holy shit, did I just nail this thing? I don't know, but I'm up 20 bucks a share. I'm going to let it work. Well, what does SNDK proceed to do? Hold. It ends up going from red, all the way to back up 15% on the day, and at 229 for a $3 loss, I get stopped out. So I go up from being up a really pretty penny to a red trade. So those are kind of some of my frustrations, with ARK, gap down on BABA. I tried a short, I added to a short, so that sucked. Meanwhile, Oklo, I was short from, and still am, 146 bucks. And today I did a really nice job as we were coming into the support gap level, $99, 99 and change, $99.50, as we were turning back up here, covering some off. That was really good. Rigetti, which I was also short, I did what I thought when this thing was reclaiming the 50 simple moving average, covering some off 33.30s, and then we faded off, and I covered none into the weakness. And then as we started to perk back up, I covered some more off into this strength as well, as we were kind of taking out its opening print. So that is some of my frustration. And then when we were squeezing in after hours, I covered off another little piece into this squeeze. So I still have some left, but less size. And, you had a hell of a we're talking from lows to high. You're talking a 14% rebound. So again, a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. Tesla bounced where it was supposed to. I still own this one. As long as we continue to kind of hold this $50 or 50 simple moving average, and really some of this prior support, I'm kind of comfortable just sitting there. What else did I do today? I did add a piece of NEM, and I kind of did so when GLD was starting to push. If you look at kind of the gold futures, you tried taking out prior day high, and as soon as it took out prior day high, I was like, okay, maybe this is trying to hold the 50 and start to turn back up. Fine. And so I picked NEM as my vehicle of choice, and I bought this right in here, only to kind of see it fail with the rest of gold. I held it because my stop was low of day, and this thing actually closed fairly well, so I'm able to hold that one into the weekend. And then I did cover some Cypher as well, as I thought that this was reclaiming the 20 simple moving average and VWAP. I covered some, and then that's it. I'm still just sitting in Cypher right at the end, right at the close, as we were kind of holding VWAP. I did take off another little piece, so I'm effectively out half of my Cypher as well. So that was my trading day in a nutshell. I took some profits off the table, took some profits on Oklo, took some profits on Cypher, took some profits on Rigetti, added NEM, stayed patient with Tesla, closed ARK. I'm pretty angry at myself for that one. Baba, not that big a deal because it broke my stop, and I just, you just don't really want to sit with something if it fades much more. Yes, in hindsight, you sit with it all day. It closes back above your average. That's all swell and dandy, but ultimately, I need to respect my stops, and not a big deal. I'm not mad about SNDK as well because it was a really nice green trade, but ultimately I am trying to kind of catch this thing for a 40-50 point move, right? Losing 3 points, not that big a deal. Yes, a little bit of frustration. This price action is effing insane. My hope is that really we can get a gap up overnight, really a gap up over the weekend, and then a 260, 270, something kind of nutty, I think would be sweet. I won't stop watching it, and ideally, the day that it stays heavy, MU will stay heavy, WDC will stay heavy, STX will stay heavy. I won't just trade it on its own. I need the group to kind of be participating. And the market, I thought, did a really, really nice job of bouncing where it was supposed to, right? A name like Hood, I thought bounced exactly where it was supposed to. 1022's low. When you look at the low, 120.88. You did a really, really nice job coming down into 120.88 and bouncing exactly where you are supposed to. Let me remove this line. So really, really nice job holding 1022's low, and a really nice push throughout the rest of the day, which obviously is going to be supportive for ARK. And then Coinbase, another one of Kathy's big positions. Bitcoin at one point wasn't really going down like the market. Coinbase comes right into the 200, bounces almost like it is supposed to. Very nice to see. So yeah, I'm dealing with a little bit of frustration today, but that's just kind of trading. Every day is not going to be perfect, so I'm not too concerned about being perfect. My job is to just manage risk in real time the best that I can, and I felt that I did that today, despite being a little bit frustrated with some of the actions that I took, and really some of the price action of the names that I was in. NQ comes right into, which is the NASDAQ futures, comes right into the 50 simple moving average. Undercuts, again, 1022's low, and just like Hood, you kind of undercut and you end up holding that level. Nice bounce today. So, you kind of come down a few days into that. You finally go down 2 days in a row. That's something that the market really hasn't done, although, we effectively closed flat. Really, really nice to see. NVDA held, I thought, where it was supposed to. Came down into the 50-day, undercut the 50-day, and then just held it perfectly. Palantir trying to reclaim its 50 simple moving average, and that is a very big line in the sand. You don't want to start losing your 50. And what did this one do? It came right down to 1022's low. Would you be so surprised that it undercuts it as well? You've got your low here of 169.42, and you kind of come right into that low. And if you were prepared for some of these, and I necessarily wasn't. I can't tell anybody that I was prepared for some of these, but you come right into that level. You start to undercut this stuff by a penny. You see these things wicking right off that 169.42 level, and then a big, big recovery. I mean, nice $10 move. If you were prepared for this kind of entry here, you're catching a really nice move with a low risk entry off these lows, 5% with effectively a 1% risk off to the lows. So really a nice 5-to-1 trade, and potentially these things could have bottomed and then higher we go. And you saw nice action from a lot of stocks out there, whether it was speculative stuff. You finally saw some of the rare earth stuff bouncing. UAMY up almost 20% today. MP up 12% today. Are these things in renewed uptrends? I don't think so. You would need to make a bigger move up, digest for a little while, and then maybe I would change my mind. But ultimately, a bit of an oversold bounce, a bit of a snapback on some of the quantum names. All that is fine. And then yesterday you had, some report on iron, and then this one ended up going lower, still ended up closing down 7% on the day, despite, that market V-shaped recovery. But just like the others, right around midday, this thing started to V-shape recover with some of the others. So it's, kind of moving in lockstep with the market. EOSE was one that actually had a really, really nice chart. And boy, did this thing have itself a day. So really, really nice move for EOSE. I mean, superb, big volume. Is this just kind of a short squeeze out? Is this just a continuation breakout? This is a really nice high tight flag. I don't know what is going to happen with this one into next week, but ultimately a really nice move, and maybe some continuation next week if the market can continue to bounce. It did exactly what it was supposed to today. So, the bulls did their job. Like I said, I took a long, I did unfortunately cut, some long positions. So it is what it is. And then even some aerospace and defense names, they caught my attention. These things have been beaten up quite a bit off these highs, right? You're basically down on something like KTOS, almost 40% in a couple of weeks. Earnings obviously did not help, but this thing off of the lows up 8%, and really actually off the lows up 14%. So just big recoveries all across the board. Rocket Lab, similar deal. Big recovery into the afternoon, again 13%. So a lot of this stuff closed green 5% on the day, but after being down quite a bit. So you're probably going to see a lot of people posting the old oops reversals all over the market. And to that, I would say, don't get FOMO that you've missed some of these. If the market is indeed in a really nice bounce from the 50 and a renewed uptrend, we're going to see, a breadth expansion with a lot of stocks that have gotten either one, beaten up, or two, the leaders holding exactly where they should have, bouncing at 50 days, undercut and rally right off those 1022 lows. When you do your scanning over the weekend, you probably will notice that is a very common theme, that things came right into that October 22nd low, and then they started to rebound right from there. Even a name like NBIS, right into the 50-day, not quite into that 1022 low, effectively building a higher low, which is really, really good, and reclaiming the 50 simple moving average. And again, right around the same time, 11 o'clock Central Time, noon Eastern, all of these things are having these double-digit bounces. What does that mean? Is this just a short covering bounce? Maybe. All I know is that this chart's still a touch sloppy before I could think that it's actually set up and ready to go higher. But you had some nice action, and I gotta give the market the credit where credit is due. So the market and the bulls definitely stepped up where they needed to. I bought a position. I thought Hood was maybe buyable. And then I couldn't stay stubborn on the short side. I had to take some money off the table, which is exactly what I did. That kind of softened the blow of, watching IONQ come stop me out and me staying stubborn. I mean, that was probably, not so much, letting go of ARK a little too soon, but, being stubborn and being up quite a bit in IONQ only to see myself go red on it. That's a little bit frustrating. Such is life. Again, that's trading. So we'll see what Monday brings. I thought the market, like I said, did a really nice job. You've got some of these Oilers as well that I think look pretty good. I don't know if money is trying to rotate into some of these Oilers, but boy, like Adino built a really nice base after going up, building a base, going up, building a base, going up, building a new base. Is that a place where money goes? ISRG was another one that I mentioned on last night's watch list video. I thought that this was a pretty good breakout over prior day high, about 548, 549, and ultimately a 560 close. Pretty nice push. Again, a little bit of a slower name, but sometimes I always say slow money is better than no money. And ISRG did exactly what it's supposed to out of a really clean bullish setup, and ultimately in a market that was super friendly today after noon. So hopefully you guys all had a pretty good trading day today. Hopefully a lot less stressful than mine. Really a lot, not stressful, but less frustrating. There are definitely things that I can look back on in hindsight and say, I wish I did this better. I wish I did that better. I wish I showed a little bit more patience. But again, that's just trading. So hopefully you guys all did a whole hell of a lot better than I did. And I will see you guys on Monday. Cheers.